Hello, I'm Miss Porter. And I'm Mrs. McIntosh. And we're going to talk to you about the foundation stage curriculum. We're going to talk to you about how we deliver the curriculum, expectations for your children throughout school and in the classroom, how we teach your child to read, and how we hope to foster a positive partnership with you. So our curriculum follows Development Matters, which is the same curriculum that your children would have experienced through their life at preschool and nursery. So we build on the curriculum that they've already started, and we work through all the different areas. Personal, social, and emotional development is our main focus for the autumn term. We also focus on physical development, how your child can move through fine motor skills and large motor skills activities. So large motor skills, things like climbing, running, jumping, having fun in the garden, climbing the trees. Moving on to fine motor skill development, where we teach your children how to use the muscles in their hands, moving on to be able to learn to hold a pencil and write. Communication and language is a large part of the curriculum, as you can imagine. We help your child to communicate effectively between themselves and with us, and teach them how to listen as well as speak. The prime areas, the personal, social, emotional, physical development, and communication language, underpin literacy, maths, understanding the world, expressive arts and design. So literacy, reading and writing. Maths is broken down into number and shape, space and measure. Understanding the world are subjects such as geography, history, science. So science for little children is things like learning about floating and sinking, learning about the natural world. We learn about whereabouts we live, what's in our local area. We find out about the historical side of ourselves, which is what we were like when we were younger. That covers the understanding of the world topics. We also enjoy lots of messy play and art, which is part of expressive arts and design. The children really enjoy the creation station, where they can make models using sticky tape and glue. This also encompasses role play, where we encourage your children to act in role, starting off often playing in the role play area and moving on to act out different stories such as traditional tales. All these types of experiences enable them to develop throughout the year with us, and then moving on throughout school, where they can hopefully learn to write interesting stories about their experiences, building on the role play examples that they've had with us. The first part of the term focuses on the personal, social, and emotional side of the curriculum, where we teach your children about taking turns, about sharing, about being kind, following the rules and routines in the classroom. We do this by using a range of texts. So the first story that we start sharing with your child is A Rainbow Fish, and we talk to them about how some of the things that happen in the book we can emulate ourselves. So the rainbow fish learns how to share his shiny scale. We talk about how we can share the toys in the classroom. There's some pictures here that we wanted to show you of some play-based activities where the children are encouraged to share and take turns and learn from each other, sometimes independently, as we have in the role play area here, and other times with a supportive adult who's encouraging fair play. So we use a range of texts, not just the rainbow fish. We use other stories to embed these concepts. So as I said, it's a play-based curriculum. So we're not going to be sitting your children down on the first day with workbooks where they're tracing round letters or doing some sums. All our teaching is through play. The pictures that we've got here, the first picture where the children are investigating using a magnifying glass. Here they're looking at a picture that was part of our Frosty and Frozen topic, where we're finding out about animals that live in cold places. So there's pictures out on the tables for them to have a look at, and some pens and paper for them to maybe have a go at drawing or writing what they know about the animals they found out about. The children also have the opportunity to build and using bricks, and so we've got a picture of that one there. The next picture shows some children working with the interactive whiteboard. They're playing a shape game. And then we've got pictures of children with the musical instruments, playing with the Play-Doh, painting, and a nice activity where the children are playing outside with the water bottles. So here, for example, this is a subtraction activity where the children don't realise they're learning about takeaway. They were outside with an adult. We were singing 10 green bottles, and they were taking a bottle away at a time and seeing the numbers going up and going back down again when they were counting. So all of our continuous provision, so all of the toys that we put out for the children to play with during their free flow play times, has a purpose behind it. So if we're learning about shape, we'll have some shape toys out for them to play with. If we're, I think the bottom picture where the little girl's painting a picture of herself, this is part of our ourselves topic where the children are encouraged to go over and do a painting.
Okay, so Ms. Porter here has just spoke about some of the continuous provision that's out all the time, but then we also have other sessions during the day where we do sit and teach your children. So we learn through play alongside some whole class learning and guided work times. So 3 times a day we have these taught sessions. In the mornings we have phonics where we all sit down and we learn about our phonic sounds. We then go on to maths in the middle of the day, and then after lunch we have a shared topic which is more about like the geography history side of things. We then have some guided sessions with an adult. These are differentiated and they're to embed whole class learning, and it gives them an opportunity to practice the new skill. So whatever we were learning maybe in maths, we would then have a practice in small groups outside with an adult to sort of really extend their learning and have a bit more opportunity to practice. The continuous provision around the classroom would also be linked with this learning. So as Ms. Porter said, we had some Arctic work out on the writing table that linked with our Frosty and Frozen topic. We also have the shapes that were on the interactive whiteboard when we were learning about shape. So children have the opportunity to then practice what they've just been taught throughout the classroom during their free flow play. Now, observations are taken of your children during this time as well, and you'll see those on Tapestry, which you've all been signed up to. So throughout the year, you'll get links to these that you'll be able to have a look at, and it will show you your children learning and all the fun they've been having during the day. So here are some of the guided adult-led sessions. So as you can see, another one of these links to that 2D shapes that we've been taught. So we would have been taught about 2D shapes. They'd have 2D shapes in their continuous provision, but a few children would also be taken out throughout the whole week, and they've gone on a shape hunt around the school. So they've gone to look at windows, what shapes they are. They've found triangles, maybe on some of the doors throughout the classroom, and they've had lots of fun doing this. There's another one there where they've been counting conkers and practicing adding 2 different numbers together using some of the autumn equipment that we've got out. And at the bottom there, we've got a topic-based photograph where they were practicing that science, that floating and sinking, and looking at some different fruits and some different objects that might sink or float in the water. And again, we've got some continuous provision here. So in these photographs, we've got some of the learning opportunities that we have throughout the whole year out and about for children to play with. So in the top corner there, we've got our literacy shack, which is outside, where children have the opportunity to do some writing. They've got clipboards that they can take out and about into the garden area. We've then got the small world, so we've got the doll's house there in that middle photo where they're all learning to share together, work together, tell stories together with lots of the small equipment that links with the communication and language and the role play side. We've got a big piece of cardboard on the floor there that children had the opportunity to create roads with, so they did lots of drawing on that. We encouraged them to do some writing on it as well, so maybe have a go at writing some of the numbers of the houses or the words that might link to some of their drawings. The bottom photo there, they're building, was that a fort or something that day?
So, yeah.
Building a bit of a fort there, and again, adults are alongside them to help encourage them, promote sharing and extending those learning opportunities. And then in the final photo there, it was a car wash station that they'd actually set up there, and they were taking turns to wash the different cars. There was lots of talk going on, lots of really good chatting and communication there, and it led to a really fun day outside.
So moving on from the opportunities that you've just seen where your children have been learning through play, they've had guided sessions with adults, and they've been involved in whole class sessions. We form our assessments through observations. So as we saw earlier on, where the children are playing, we'll be stepping back in some opportunities there and observing how they're playing, what their next steps for learning would be. So we might notice some children that are struggling a little bit with their counting. They were counting outside, we've asked them to count some objects. We might think, oh, they need a little bit more input with that. We might notice some children that are struggling with sharing and taking turns. So we might factor that in. That would be their next steps for their learning. So we have ongoing assessments throughout the year that then inform the next steps for our planning. We start the year with a baseline assessment, which starts over the first part of the term. It's normally finished by October half term, and it's part of our baseline to see where your children are at. Your children won't realise that anything's gone on. That will just be through our interaction with the children during their play times. So while they're playing, for example, in the maths area, we might task them to count out some toys and see how far they can count, or can they recognise any numbers. Or if we're looking at a story in the book corner with them, we might ask them to predict what might be happening next in the story, or to describe a character. And from there on, we'll be able to get a little bit of a baseline to see where your children are at now, and to determine what we need to do to help them move to the next step of their learning journey. So they're the formative assessments that happen throughout the year. We have a summative assessment that will happen at the end of each term for phonics and maths. So once we've started teaching phonics, which we start almost immediately as they start school, then we'll assess them at periods through the year, and to see how many sounds they've learned and whether they can blend and segment sounds. We'll talk about phonics a little bit more later on. So what we do then is we make a best fit judgment at the end of the year to see whether your child is emerging, or if they are in emerging or an expected level of development. So the expected level of development is where the child is expected to be at the end of their year in the foundation stage, or there may be some areas where your child is emerging at. So it might be that they've haven't developed the fingers in their muscles well enough to be able to write competently. So it might be they might be emerging at some areas of the curriculum by the end of the year. And you'll be given that information at the end of the year. But obviously through parents' evenings throughout the year, we'll keep you informed of where your children are. And if we feel they need any little bits of help, then we will help them throughout the year, obviously. And we'll let you know about that as well. So your children will come home and hopefully they will have learned some new words, and they'll be keen to talk to you about what they are. So if you haven't heard them talk about these words before, you might be hearing resilience, perseverance, teamwork, responsibility and concentration. This is part of the learning toolkit that Mr. Marks, I believe, talked to you about when he presented his part of the foundation stage new parents PowerPoint. So as part of our autumn term learning regarding the ourselves topic and around rainbow fish, we'll talk to your children about how they can show good teamwork skills, and they may come home with a teamwork sticker if we've seen them sharing, for example, and taking turns with the activities that we've provided for them.
They'll be very proud of them, won't they?
They love this. They love a sticker. Yeah, they love a sticker. This is one of the other things that your child will come home and talk to you about. We choose somebody to be the Pride Pal every day, following on from the previous day's activities. So if we've noticed one of your children who has been particularly polite and respectful, independent, they've done their best with their learning, with their listening, with their sitting, and they've cared for each other, and they've shown everyone matters. So they'll learn these words too, and we'll talk to them about how they can be polite and respectful with the toys, how they can be independent, putting their aprons on themselves, putting their coats on themselves, doing your best. So if you've been asked to do something, do you do it the first time? And we know lots of little children don't do it the first time. So we understand that these are skills to build up to. And we encourage children that everybody matters. So we encourage them to take care of each other, and to, if somebody's sad, what could you do to make them feel happy? So we spend a lot of time, as we said, at the first term, embedding the Pride Code. So we embed the Pride Code, and alongside this, we talk about the toolkit, and what we can do to be effective learners. We focus on positive reinforcement, and we do this through the recognition board. So your children might come home and talk to you about the fact they had a marble in the jar. And this can be through something that they've done where they've shown the Pride Code or a learning toolkit disposition, or it could be a whole class learning objective, a whole class target that we're working towards. So for example, at the first term, we spend a lot of time, our targets are usually on independence. So can we all put our apron on? Can we all put our coat on? So for example, when we've come back in after playing outside, or who managed to take their coat off and hang it back up, or you can have a marble in the jar for that. So we try and focus on the positive reinforcement and the praise. As I'm sure you'll know, your children like being praised for the things that they've been doing. So I just wanted to show you this picture here. This is an example of both the Learning Toolkit and the Pride Code. So before I start, I just wanted to explain that I didn't just leave this little boy in the garden to get on and have a lovely time by himself. I just thought it's a really nice example of perseverance and resilience, part of our toolkit. So as you can see, the little boy is starting off on the trike, going around the garden. He gets stuck, his wheel falls off the path, and he can't get himself back on to cycle it across. So he spent a lot of time trying to do this, and we encouraged him. So I was there with him. I was like, what could you do now? He started off, when the wheel first went off the path, he called me, and I went over, and he said, my wheel's come off, I can't go. So then we had a discussion. So back to the communication language, right? Well, what's happened? My wheel's fallen off. Or what's happened? It's come off so your wheel has come off the path. So we had a discussion about that. What could you do? And he said to me, you can pick it up. And I said, well, you come off and you see if you can pick it up. So I talked him through the system, the procedure, what he could do. And by the end of it, he managed to lift the bike off himself, get back on the bike and go round and round. And when it happened again, he knew exactly what to do. So in that one little tiny snapshot of what's happened in a part of our day, he's shown independence. He's shown that he's managed to do his best by listening and taking on some ideas. He's persevered because it wasn't the first time it happened. He was resilient. You know, he didn't sit there crying because he couldn't get it back on. He took responsibility for his learning. He wanted to do that, so he was taking responsibility. And it took a bit of concentration, because bless him, every time he put one wheel on, the other wheel fell off the other part of the path. So it wasn't a quick 5-minute fix. He really did need to concentrate through that. So that sort of puts into perspective some of the toolkit and the Pride Code. Obviously, we understand that children don't always do everything that they're supposed to do all of the time, and we have a time-out system for children who are needing that little bit of thinking time. So if we ask your child, for example, to come and sit on the carpet because we're going to have story time and they don't come straight away, we might ask them again, and we'll encourage them, come and sit down, we're going to listen to a story, or sit nicely on the carpet, or don't poke your friend while we're listening to a story. If we're having to give them more than one instruction and they're not listening the first time, then we will repeat. But it is our expectation, after we've asked them 2 times to do something, that they do as they're told. And we will say to them, right, unfortunately, you haven't listened to the grown-up. You won't have some time out. So just have 2 or 3 minutes with a sand timer. We did have a place of thought cushion, but obviously because of COVID, we're not having so many soft furnishings. So we'll have a place of thought area that the children will sit in and just have a few minutes. Then we talk to them about what they could have done. And often they know, I shouldn't have touched that child, or I should come and do as I'm told, and I should come and sit on the carpet or do what I've been asked by an adult.
It gives them that little bit of time to reflect on their behaviour.
Yeah, and to think about it. And if this repeats, then they go to, we call it the pot in school. So it's a place of thought, and they'll what we do in the foundation stage is, if that's happened and they still haven't listened to us in the classroom, then we say, well, unfortunately you haven't listened, you're going to miss some lunchtime. So they just miss 10 minutes or 20 minutes if it's a repeated incident. So 10 minutes of their lunchtime. So they have their lunch, and then before they go out on the playground, they'll miss 10 minutes play. Rest of the school will be sent an email home to explain the situation. We think it's better with little children. We'll just mention it to you at the end of the day. And it's we've already sanctioned your child, so it's just to say, oh, you might want to have a little chat about what happened today. They were had some time out. It's not for you to discipline your child again, because that's been done at school. We just know that you like to know those sort of things. If it does repeat, then that might be the time where we ask you to come into school and we'd talk to you about some other strategies. And what we would probably do is ask the office to call you, and we'd ask you to come round to the front entrance to talk to us then. Just makes it a little bit more private. So we're going to talk to you about early reading, and it's a team approach. So it's us and it's you, and we understand that we can teach your children the skills and the strategies through phonics to learn to read, but we really need your support in helping your child to listen to them read, and to start off with, before they can read the words, to enjoy stories with them at home. So the way we do it in school is we have story time every day, at least once a day. So we'll have a sharing a story, and sometimes this is through the enjoyment of a book, so just sharing the story. And other times we'll stop and we'll talk about the book, talk about the story, what might happen next, tell me about this character. We then move on to learning about the sounds in words. So we'll learn about segmenting and blending. So segmenting to spell a word, blending to read a word. And there are examples of segmenting and blending on Tapestry. So under memos, we will release the videos that we've made for you that show the differences between blending and segmenting. When your child is able to blend and segment a few words, they'll move on to the colour scheme books. Now, I'm sure you'll appreciate that all children learn things at different times. So some of your children would have been potty trained earlier than others. Some of your children would have slept through the night earlier than others. Children learn to read at different stages. So please don't get upset if your next door neighbour is a magpie, hasn't got a reading book when the other one's got a penguin and they've got a reading book. We assess your child as they go through their phonics programme, and when they can blend, segment and read a few tricky words, that's when we'll send them home with a scheme book. So the colour bands of the scheme book are linked to their phonic phase. So when we're teaching phonic phase 2, they'll have a phase 2 reading book to look at. We encourage you, it's school expectation, to read at home 5 times a week. So that's, to start off with, that's obviously sharing a book. Later on, when they're on a scheme book, they can read a scheme book with you for 2 or 3 times, and then maybe you can share a book with them for the other 2 times. What we'd like you to do is document that in their reading record, so it says read with mum, read with dad, read with grandma, so we can see that you've read 5 times a week.
Because we count these, and that goes towards our classes reading times, which is really good.
Yeah. You'll also be sent home a letters and sounds booklet, which is like foundation stage homework, and in here we show you the sound that we've been learning this week, the sounds we've been learning this week. We show you how to form the letters, and we show you, we send home the details of the song that we use to help to remember the sound. When your child is on a scheme book, they'll be given out on a Monday. We encourage you to read and reread them and look at them, and then they change the following Monday. So you don't need to read the 2 books every day 5 times. As I said earlier, supplement that with sharing books at home. There's a changing box in the classroom, so on a Monday you'll put your books in the box, and we'll change them for you. We also have reading records, and if you write in there that they've read with you, we have a system where we check to make sure you have read with your child 5 times a week. So those books also need to be put in the box with the letters and sounds every Thursday. So that's every Monday when they're on a scheme book, they put the scheme books in the box. Every Thursday before they're on a scheme book, the letters and sounds booklet goes in the folder for us to update, in the box for us to update. But further information will be sent through to you about that. We also visit the library once a fortnight on a Friday, where your child will be able to take a book home from the library.
Sometimes they choose a bit of all sorts, don't they? There's a bit of fiction and non-fiction going on there, but and it might even be books that they can't access themselves, but they're quite nice to look at with the child.
It's just that enjoyment, isn't it? It's if they're choosing to read anything, at least they're inspired by text. So as we said, it doesn't matter what they read, anything, comics, even if they're watching you read a magazine. I remember when my son first started school, he was really interested in the Screwfix catalogue, so he just wanted to take that home from school. So any type of text, any type of reading, your child watching you read, so you snuggling down on the settee and turn the telly off and having a flick through a magazine, that's inspiring them to think, oh, I might just do that. I might get a book from the snuggle up and have a look, flick through a book. So as it says, a child who reads will be an adult who thinks. So we learn to read using synthetic phonics as a primary approach. So we have phonics every day. It's fun and engaging. So there's actions, there's songs, there's stories, there's all part of how we teach phonics. We make it as fun as possible. It's fast and furious. So I know years ago when we first used to teach phonics, it was one letter a week. So maybe it was all week learning S or S. Now it's fast and furious. So we teach 4 sounds a week. So the first 4 sounds your children will learn is SAT. So SATP. So we learn through sounds, not the letter names. There's a video with me enunciating all the sounds on Tapestry for you to look at too. So please have a look at that. It gives you this correct enunciation for all of the sounds. So for example, we don't say S or M, we say S, but that's explained in the video. We also teach your children how to form the letters. To start off with, you do lots of letter shapes in the air, and then we move on to using a whiteboard pen and a chunky pen and a whiteboard, and then pencil and paper. We teach how to blend and segment. So blending is blending words to read. So looking at words, cat makes cat. Segmenting them is wanting to write the word cat, cat, at, segmenting the sounds in a word. Then we learn how to read words in captions and simple sentences. And then we move on to learn how to read tricky words. So tricky words are words that can't be sounded out. So words like go and said. Go would be got, it's not a word. So we teach children that some words can't be sounded out. That's just the way they are. You just have to learn, and they're just tricky. So your children will be taught some tricky words and also high frequency words. So these are the words that are often seen in books that your children start off by blending and then need to learn by sight, such as in. So they start off by blending them, it, and then moving on to be able to read them without blending. And we encourage you and your child to practice this at home, and that's through their letters and sounds pack. So when we first start teaching phonics, they'll get the whole pack that will be sent through. And what we would like you to do is to make sure that as you go through the book, you only go through the sounds that your child's learned that week.
Don't rush ahead.
Don't rush ahead. The first 4 sounds are SATP, SAT, and every week we learn a new set of 4 sounds, and they're the ones to concentrate on that week. So writing in the foundation stage is all about making marks. It's about letter formation, and we teach lowercase to start with, and it's a precursive script. So it's like joined up handwriting, but it doesn't all join to each letter. So you'll see on your letters and sounds pack what that looks like. Last year was the first year that we've taught precursive script, and we were both a little bit hesitant, weren't we?
We were a bit apprehensive about the whole thing.
About whether it would work, and it worked really well. It gets children into good habits from first starting to learn to write. And what we'd really encourage you to do is to just use the precursive script for your child. It is tricky, it is challenging, but if you only do that at home, then they get into really good habits. So every letter starts with a lead in and finishes with a lead out, and there's a little story attached, a handwriting patter attached to the letter. So for example, when we teach how to form the letter A, the A, we lead in, around the apple and down the leaf, lead out. And there are other, every letter has a handwriting pattern.
You'll get to know them.
You'll get to know them, yeah. And you might find that your child will notice an A, a T in a book, and they'll notice what that is, and they might say, oh, that's around the apple and down the leaf. So even though we teach a precursive script, we do it alongside looking at print in lots of different ways. So even though, for example, on this PowerPoint, it's not showing precursive script, your child will soon get to know that that's an A, that's a S, even though it hasn't got the lead in and the lead out. We teach your children how to write their name. That's where we would obviously have a capital letter to start with. We teach your children how to segment to spell, segment sounds to spell. And we encourage them to apply their phonic knowledge, not copywriting. So copywriting maybe for their names, what we do, but the rest of the time, if your child will say to us later on in the year, oh, how do I write mum, how do I write dad, we'll say, oh, put the word in your panel, see if you can hear the sounds, because it's hearing the sounds that's the main focus. Before we go anywhere near reading or writing, we spend a lot of time playing games where the children can hear the sounds. So we'll say to your children, can you put your hands on your head? Can you put your hands in your app? And we know head isn't written H-E-D, but they're the sounds that you can hear in the word. So we spend a lot of time focusing on the oral blending and segmenting before moving on to the reading and the writing. And then we also teach your children how to read and then to spell tricky words. So that's where they can't sound them out. They just have to remember what they look like ready for writing. So how you can help at home. We've got some apps here, Hip Hop Hen and Phonics Play. And there are other phonic apps that you can download if your child might like to have a play with at home. And really all we're saying is just you follow the format that we're teaching at school. Don't rush ahead. Your child can enjoy showing you what they know and helping you to learn how to say the sounds properly. And as much as you can, we try ask you to focus on the oral blending. So you can, as on the way home, you could from school, or we're going to go to the shop. Shall we get some cake? And can they hear you saying cake? And at the early stages, if you're saying d o g, they don't necessarily know what you're saying. But as they start to distinguish different sounds through our teaching in school, you'll notice that they're start to get in tune with the sounds that they can hear, which then helps them with their reading and their writing. So parent partnership, as we've said, read as much as you can, read the labels at Tesco's, read the number on the bus as it goes past. After half term, we're offering a stay and play session where you can come and spend some time with your child in the classroom. That will need to be booked in with one of us, and further information was sent to you with the packs earlier on. We'd like you to share any achievements that you have from home with us. So if your child has a swimming certificate, any proud moments from home that they'd like to share. We also have a Shining Star system where we choose a child a week who's shown some of the toolkits and the Pride Code, or they've done their best, they've worked hard, and we'll make them the Shining Star, and you'll be able to see their shiny sticker when they come home that they've achieved. If we could ask you to attend parents' evenings and support us to follow the school expectations. So if we're coming out with your child at the end of the day and we're saying to them, well, unfortunately, we've had a bit of sad news today because we've had to have some time out, I'm afraid. It's all been dealt with in school. That's the time really to then support us and to be able to say, oh, I'm very sorry about that, Miss Porter. We'll have a little chat about that at home. Come on then, let's get home and off we go. And we're very positive about it. We'll say, well, tomorrow's another day. We'll start with a clean slate. but it's just us mentioning to you and then you showing to your child that we're both singing from the same song sheet, as they say. Help us with the letters and sounds, so encourage your children to learn the sounds that they need that's in their letters and sound pack. We might send home any extra little bits of homework, so if we notice that your children are struggling a little bit with some sounds or some any of the letter formation or some numbers, we might send home some extra bits and bobs for you to do. So we'd encourage you to do those too. We use the Tapestry online learning journal. So you'll see Mrs. McIntosh mentioned earlier about the observations that we will put up on Tapestry for you to have a look at. So you can also put any moments that you've noticed. So you might like to tell us that your child noticed the number of the bus on the way home, or counted the stairs as they went up to bed. Anything that's similar to what we're putting on there about your child's learning journey, we'd like to see what they're doing at home too. And we know that this is a big start, big change for your child and for you, and starting school is a big transition, and in these COVID times it has been very difficult for you and your child, and it's going to be a different start to school that we would normally have. But we just say, if you're unsure of anything, please don't worry, email us, phone, try and catch us at the end of the day is probably better than the start of the day, but by all means just come and see us.
Well, so thank you so much for listening, and I hope you took all of that in. Luckily, because it's recorded, you can rewatch a couple of times if you're unsure. But yeah, again, email us, give us a phone call if there's anything you need to ask us.
I'm aware of some of the procedures for us are quite new as well. So I talked earlier about the letters and sounds pack, and I think due to the COVID and the trying not to send things backwards and forwards too many times, the letters and sounds pack will come home and stay with you. So I may have made a mistake earlier where I said about bringing it into school. So you'll just have that pack and you'll keep it. I think I was referring to last year. So if that isn't clear, then drop us a line and we will clarify any points that we've missed, because obviously this is all new to us as well. Some of you might have noticed from one of the earlier videos that we made a bit of a slip up, a bit of a technical hitch with what we uploaded. So we're learning as we go along.
We really are.
So yeah, this has been about our third take. So we hope that this is it for us. We've managed to go through all of the details that we feel that will help you learn a bit more about the curriculum and how we can work together with your child's learning journey. So we look forward to seeing you
next
on the 14th.
Yes.
See you then.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.